Let me ask you a big question. How much longer will you tolerate the pain? How many times will you excuse the disrespect? Even Abraham, the father of faith, had to let go of Ishmael when his actions threatened God's plan. If your adult child is bringing chaos into your life, it's time to face the truth. Holding on may be costing you more than letting go. And the Bible gives clear instructions, clear wisdom, and when to release, on when to trust, and when to walk away. Are you ready to claim your peace and obey God's call? Now, let me say that parenting is a lifelong journey, but there comes a time when adult children must take responsibility for their actions and choices. When an adult child is consistently disrespectful, toxic, or even abusive, the Bible provides wisdom on setting boundaries and entrusting them to God. This video explores the biblical perspective on letting go, trusting God's plan, and finding peace in the process. Before we delve deeper into the video, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Iyabo Oyawale, and I share narcissistic abuse recovery tips on this channel. I am a narcissistic abuse survivor, and on this channel, I share what has worked for me. And if you're here, I want to say thank you for coming. But if you're not yet subscribed and you're serious about your healing, please hit the subscribe button right away and turn on notifications to be notified when we got new live streams, when we got new videos, because we are constantly uploading new content. And our goal basically is to empower you with the tools that you need to move from narcissistic abuse to peace. And if peace is a big deal for you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and welcome to this community if you just did that. Now, let me delve deeper into the video of the day. Now, we want to look at some specific examples from the Bible, and I'll start by talking about Abraham and Ishmael. Abraham and Ishmael. It was a painful but necessary separation. And it's one of the most powerful examples of letting go in the Bible, and it's found in Genesis 21. And Abraham had to send Ishmael away to protect God's plan for Isaac. Though painful, it was necessary for the fulfillment of God's promises. And I read that passage this morning and I was like, wow, because the Bible told us that Abraham was pained by Sarah's decision to let Hagar and Ishmael go. Abraham was pained because he was his son, but he wasn't Sarah's son. And so it was painful for the father, but God told him, obey your wife, do what she says, because God had a plan for Isaac. And if Ishmael was in the picture, he was going to cause chaos. And so God had to ask Abraham to let Ishmael go. And key lessons from that story is that obedience to God comes first. Even though Abraham loved Ishmael, he obeyed God's instruction. Now, by the way, let me say that I posted one video on letting go of your adult kids before now, but I didn't explore the biblical perspective. And that is why I'm doing a part 2. This is actually a part 2, but I called it the biblical perspective because here I'm talking about what actually happened in the Bible and the key lessons that we can learn from it as parents. And the key lessons we can learn from these Bible stories as parents. And so one of the key lessons to learn from the Abraham Ishmael story is that obedience to God comes first. And so even though Abraham loved Ishmael, he obeyed God's instructions. Secondly, second lesson is that letting go can be an act of faith. God might be testing our beliefs. And so Abraham trusted that God would take care of Ishmael despite sending him away. And so letting go can be an act of faith. It was an act of faith on the part of Abraham. And so letting go can be an act of faith. And also God provides even after separation. That is the third lesson to learn from this story. God provides even after separation. Now, God assured Hagar and Ishmael of his provision, showing that releasing someone does not mean abandoning them. And the fourth lesson is that Ishmael's behavior played a role too. In Genesis 21 verse 9, the Bible says that Ishmael was mocking Isaac, and this prompted Sarah to demand that Hagar and Ishmael be sent away. This shows that sometimes separation is necessary when disrespect and harm are evident. Okay, so that is for the story of Abraham and Ishmael. Now let's move to another story, not basically a story, but it's what Jesus said in Matthew 18:8-9. And it basically summarized, it basically means cutting off what harms you, cutting off what harms you. Now, Jesus said, if your hand or your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into eternal fire. That's Matthew 18:8-9. Now, applying this to disrespectful adult children, I would say that toxic relationships can be spiritually harmful. And they can be spiritually harmful because continual disrespect and emotional abuse can drain your peace, hinder your growth, and disrupt your relationship with God. Secondly, separation is sometimes necessary for spiritual survival. If an adult child is repeatedly disrespectful, refuses to change, or causes harm, setting firm boundaries is not unloving but wise. It is not unloving but wise. Even setting boundaries is an act of love and not hatred. And so letting go does not mean hating them. It means entrusting them to God and choosing peace over pain. Now, the third lesson I want to look at, the third Bible passage I want to look at is that of the prodigal son. And basically, the lesson there for us is letting them experience their own path. The story of the prodigal son, and which summarizes as letting them experience their own path. In Luke 15, the father let his son leave, even though he wasted his inheritance on riotous living. However, when the son realized his mistakes, he returned with humility. So what are the key lessons? What are the key takeaways there? Sometimes the best way to teach is to let go. The father didn't chase or force his son to stay. He allowed him to experience life. And so sometimes the best way to teach is to let go, let them experience life by themselves, let them discover their own path. Also, respectful restoration is possible. That's another lesson from this story. Respectful restoration is possible. When the son repented, he was welcomed back. But he had to come to that decision on his own. The father didn't force it on him. And so you can also not force decisions on your adult kids. You cannot force change. That is a third lesson from the story of the prodigal son. An adult child must choose to change. Your role is to set the boundary and pray. You cannot force them to change. They have to come to that decision on their own, just like the prodigal son came to that decision on his own. Excuse me. Now, the story of Eli and his sons also teaches us the consequences of allowing disrespect. The story of Eli and his sons also teaches us the consequences of allowing disrespect. Now, Eli the priest had 2 sons, Ophni and Phinehas, who were wicked and disrespectful. Despite their evil actions, Eli failed to correct them properly. He failed to do the needful. And as a result, judgment came upon his entire household. That story is in 1 Samuel 2, verse 12-17, as well as 1 Samuel 3, verse 13-14. So what are the key takeaways from that story? Failure to discipline leads to distraction. Eli's unwillingness to hold his sons accountable led to their downfall, led to his downfall too, and the downfall of the priesthood line, which he held. And so it is serious before God, because God will not continuously enable disrespect. Also, God does not tolerate persistent disrespect. That's what I just said. God does not tolerate this persistent disrespect. Eli's sons were priests, yet they treated God's command with contempt, leading to severe consequences. Also, parents must enforce boundaries. Just as God held Eli accountable, we must recognize when letting go is necessary for both our well-being and our children's spiritual condition. So the fifth Bible passage I want to look at when it comes to the biblical perspective to letting go of disrespectful adult children, disrespectful adult kids, problematic adult kids, when your adult kids are making you go crazy, they are running your mind, they are taking your mind to places you don't want it to go. So the fifth passage I want to talk about is in Romans 12, verse 18. Where we talk about when peace is no longer possible, when peace is no longer possible. So Paul wrote, If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. That's in Romans 12 verse 18. Now, understanding this verse, we understand that peace requires two willing parties. If your adult child refuses to respect you, maintaining peace may be impossible. And so it goes both ways. Both parties must respect peace. But if your adult child does not respect peace, then maintaining peace is impossible, and letting go is the result of that. Now, you are not required to endure mistreatment. We are still talking about Romans 12 verse 18. You are not required to endure mistreatment. God does not call us to remain in toxic relationships at the expense of our well-being. And so please note that. And then walking away may be the only way to keep peace in your heart. If reconciliation is not possible, you can love from a distance. You can love a toxic family member from a distance. It is not an act of weakness. It is an act of strength. And trusting God's plan for them. That is a sixth thing I want to talk about, trusting God's plan for them. Now, letting go of an adult child is difficult, yes. But just as Abraham trusted God with Ishmael, we must trust God's plan for our children. We do not own them. God does. We are just stewards of these children. And Jeremiah 29 verse 11 reminds us that, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And so God has plans for these children, and we must trust God's plan for them. We must not stand in the gap of God's plan for them by keeping them against all odds. And so let's let them go. It's an act of love. It's an act of faith. It is an act that we trust God. And so how do you release your adult children to God? How do you release disrespectful adult kids to God? Pray for them daily, even if they are distanced, as in they are not close by. Pray that God leads them back to righteousness. Also, stop enabling disrespect by setting boundaries, which is an act of love and not of hatred. Also, trust that God will provide for them. Just as he did for Ishmael, God will care for your child. And then find peace in obedience. If God is leading you to let go, rest in his peace. Now, letting go of a disrespectful adult child is never easy. Who said it was easy? It is never easy. But the Bible provides guidance and comfort. Trust in God's plan, set necessary boundaries, and continue to pray for them. Just as Abraham, the prodigal son's father, Eli, and countless others in scripture had to release their children, you too can find peace in knowing that God remains in control. God remains in the plan. God remains in the story. You know how that song, I like it. God is in this story. God is in the story. God is in the mess. God is in whatever you're facing. And so trust him. Trust in his plan. Finally, I want to say letting go is not giving up. It is giving them to God. And so what tip or idea struck you the most in this video? Do let me know in the comments. And also share this video with a friend. Be the reason why someone escapes narcissistic abuse and emotional trauma. And also like this video, because when you do, you are telling YouTube the kind of content to suggest to you. And also hit the subscribe button if you are not yet a member of this community, because we are a strong community, we are a powerful community, and we hold hands through the mess of narcissistic abuse and emotional trauma. We are supportive, and you are going to find a home on this channel. And so hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to be notified when we've got new videos, as well as new live streams. By the way, we have a live stream every Saturday. We do a live stream every Saturday, 12 noon WAT. Don't miss this coming one, because we are going to talk about forgiveness and reconciliation and everything around forgiveness, basically forgiving yourself for the past, forgiving the people who've hurt you. These are all things that we face on a daily basis, and we are going to throw it down. We're going to discuss it from a biblical perspective. That is what we are known for on the Oyawale YouTube channel. We treat narcissistic abuse and emotional trauma subjects from a biblical perspective. And so join us this coming Saturday, 12 noon WAT, and I'll be live and direct. Thank you for watching this video. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to us. And I'll see you in my next video.